whether you should do a Roth 401k or a traditional 401k if you want to essentially retire richer and be more financially well off. So before I get into that, I'm going to talk about the key differences between these two retirement saving accounts. So Roth 401k, essentially what happens is you're contributing to this retirement account after you pay taxes on your income, but when you withdraw the money, you don't have to pay any tax on that when you're retired. So it's a way of the government helping you out and saving on tax if it's for retirement accounts. And it's a similar thing with the traditional 401k, but we actually flip the tax order. So instead of paying the tax now, you actually pay no tax when you make a contribution. But then when you withdraw money, you actually have to pay tax on that money as ordinary income. So really, it appears to be a question of whether you'd rather pay tax today or pay tax tomorrow, and whether you're likely to pay more tax today or more tax tomorrow. And so just a quick visual of what this looks like. Let's say you're earning about $80,000. If you had a Roth 401k, what would happen is you'd pay tax on that, about $16,000 for 2023. And then you maybe max out on your Roth 401k, and you're left with $41,000 to take home. Whereas in the traditional 401k, let's say you also earn $80,000, but now here's the crucial difference. It's actually, you're going to contribute that max amount before you pay tax. And so what that does is it actually brings your income down to $57,000. So your tax liability is also lowered. So you're left with $47,600 to take home, and that's about $6,600 in just savings from taxes. So when the present tense, at least traditional 401k, is putting more dollars in your bank account. But in the future, it's a little bit different. So with the Roth 401k, let's say you draw some X dollars, when you're retired at about 65 years of age, and you get to take home all that money. On the other hand, with the traditional 401k, you would withdraw that money, but you have to pay some tax on it. It's an ordinary income. So you take home X dollars minus Y dollars of tax. And that's really where that kind of confusion is do you think this, Y dollars of tax is going to be more in the future, or is it going to be more today? And those are some of the things I address in this video. And then a real quick caveat here. I mentioned that with the traditional 401k, you might actually have some savings of tax money. Let's say you invested that into a brokerage account. Well, it becomes a little bit even more complicated, right? So now you have money that you're pulling from a retirement account, money that you're pulling from a brokerage account, and then the taxes on both of those. And so really it's a lot of unknowns, but there's a couple points that can help clear up what your taxes are going to look like in the future, so you can get more clarity on this. So number one, you can invest your pre-tax savings. So that's a consideration to make that a lot of people don't think about. So if you do a pre-tax account, the money that you save that you would have paid tax on, that could actually be invested in another brokerage account to compensate for some of those future tax liabilities. Second thing is your retirement income. So a lot of people don't know how much they're going to earn in retirement. Well, the retirement income is actually just what you're going to spend in retirement, right? And so key point there is typically when you're a working adult, you're making more than how much you spend if you're investing and saving, right? So, but in retirement, your income is only what you spend. So more than likely, the retirement income, adjusted for inflation, of course, would be lower than your current income. So likely the tax liability, if taxes stay the same, would be lower. The third point to consider is there's no FICA tax in retirement. And so that's the Social Security Medicare tax. Well, as a retiree, you actually benefit from those services that the government provides, and so you actually don't have to pay that tax burden. So those are a couple considerations, and I'll walk through a simulation demonstrating how you can determine with these considerations what your tax burden would look like and which one would be the winner. So stay tuned. Simulation to determine essentially how much money you'll have when it comes to retirement and how much taxes you're going to pay then. And before I get started, let me just walk through some of the assumptions I'm going to make. We're going to say optimistically, 9-year lifespan, 7% average growth rate, which has been seen in the S&P usually, 3% inflation, 38-year career, and roughly consistent tax brackets because no one really knows what's going to happen in the future. So And I'm going to do this analysis for 80,000 as the income, but the same principles will apply for any income, and I'll show you how to do that. So real quick, what we're going to do is we're going to figure out what this 401k balance will be worth in the future. So I'll use this compound interest calculator and put in 22,500, the time span, rate of return, and boom, I have this number, 3.8 million. And so I'm going to drop that in here, which is going to be the total account value. And I need to adjust that for inflation. So I'll take this number and I'll divide that by our inflation here. So 3% inflation. And so that takes that 3.8 million, turns it into 1.2 million in essentially today's dollars. And for the pre-tax case, it's going to be the same value, right? So if you're maxing out both accounts, they're both going to be worth 1.2 million in the future. And then we got to look at what is our withdrawal on a yearly basis. Well, if we have a 90-year life expectancy, we can spread this out over 30 years, assuming you retire at age 60, early retirement relatively. And okay, so it turns out you're withdrawing about 42,000. Same will be the case for the pre-tax, right? And now the differences start. So the estimated tax liability for the Roth, $0, obviously. And the effective per year take home, well, that's just going to be the same as what this was, 42,900 or 42,091. And so then the total account balance, oh, that's just the same. Okay, well, with pre-tax, there's going to be taxes, right? So let's say 42,091, right? So here I'm going to put that in here, 42,091. And assuming, you're retired, you're single, then your taxes are 6,500. Well, no, we actually don't have to pay this FICA tax. So it's only 3291, right? So that's what I'm going to put in here, 3291. And then your take home is going to be that number minus this number. Okay, and so this number times 30. Well, so that's effectively what you have to take home, right? So there's a pretty big difference there, right? About 100,000 less is your effective account balance. Now, that's assuming you didn't invest any of these additional savings that you had by not paying taxes when you were earning, right? But what if you did invest that? So then the whole story becomes a little different. We're going to run the compound interest calculator again, but with the 6,071. Now you have a balance of 1.1 million. Adjust that for inflation, and that turns into, let's see, what do we get? That turns into 374,000. Doesn't sound like much, but when we run the numbers here, it actually makes a difference. So this number divided by 30, that's how much you're withdrawing from it on a yearly basis. And then we got to figure out the capital gains associated with that. So I'm going to put in initial value, sale value, and then the annual non-capital gains income. Turns out actually you have to pay $0 in tax on that. So no taxes. That's great. And what that does is this number now is actually going to be, it's going to be 42,000 minus the tax on that, plus this additional income that you have from this brokerage account. And so now what happens is that this pre-tax account wins because the effective amount of money that you have available is higher, significantly higher, actually about 300,000 more, right? And this is assuming you do this brokerage account. But let's say you don't do the brokerage account. Well, these savings still apply. There's a lot of things you can do in the present moment with money. You can buy a house, you can do other sorts of investments. And so I would recommend most cases this pre-tax account is favorable over the Roth 401k just because of the time value of money. There's a lot of things you can do with this savings in the present moment that can actually lead to a lot of return in the future. And this difference starts to get higher and higher as you move up in the income bracket. And so that's why I would encourage people to run this kind of simulation with their own income and their projected future income. So in this case, we just assumed that it was $80,000 consistently. Most people, their incomes grow over their lifespans, their careers, and you can get more creative and have fun with this simulation. But those are just some points to consider, and I hope that makes the decisions easier for you. Thanks.